And likewise, stay away from texting, stay away from instant messaging and whatever else new capabilities, whatever new gizmos come up.
Do you want to touch on the VoIP?
No. In the council member handbook, I do have a memorandum that talks more in detail about use of computers and email and the open meetings law. So there's actual memorandum in the council member handbook from March 11, 2008. You should look that over. And next year's handbook will probably update that with based on the new law and new information that comes out. So I ask you to go back. If you haven't already looked at that, look at that again. And negative quorums. Again, there's another memorandum in the handbook from July 12, 2007 that talks specifically about walking quorums and negative quorums and gives you the best advice I can on how to avoid those types of problems. You need to read that one as well. But a walking quorum is a series of gatherings among separate groups of individuals, each less than quorum size, who agree to act uniformly in sufficient number to reach a quorum, and it results in a predetermined outcome and renders the publicly held meeting a mere formality. So you have two people get together, those two people agree on a particular result. They each go out separately, talk to other people individually. Pretty soon that little chain keeps going, and then while each of those individual conversations never meets a requiring a notice, they have already rendered and determined the outcome of a particular item. A negative quorum is kind of plays on that as well. A negative quorum is a group of sufficient size to block a proposal, and this is usually thought of in terms of when a supermajority is needed. So if you have, if you need a supermajority of 12 members, so if we have a council size of 17, you need 12 people, 2/3 vote is 12 people. If 6 people got together, which wouldn't be enough, wouldn't meet the 1/2 presumption of the meeting, it would be less than that. If 6 people got together and they agreed to stop something, they could, 6 of them vote no on a particular agenda item, and then they would determine the course of that action. That is what the classic negative quorum is. Now in the council member handbook, I spend a lot of time on that particular issue, and you need to be very careful on this one. Because with the negative quorums, you never know if the quorum is present until the subsequent meeting has occurred. So for example, if you have a people, that means you have to have a quorum of 5 to conduct business. If only a minimum number of 5 people show up, the negative quorum, the smallest number for a negative quorum would be 3. So if you read this memorandum, my memorandum says to give you the absolute assurance that you're not going to run into a negative quorum problem, if you're on a committee of 8, it's going to take up an agenda topic, do not speak with 3 or more people. Now, if you did speak with 3 or more people and all 8 show up for the meeting, then that 3 is not a negative quorum. But if only 5 show up and you spoke with 3, that could be the negative quorum. So go back, read that memorandum, and if you have further questions on that, we can go over that again in a one-on-one situation. I guess the last thing I want to is just, I was asked to look at reconsideration. We have a council rule that does allow us to reconsider any particular piece of legislation. The purpose of that is to undo hastily, ill-advised, or to take into account changed circumstances. We have issued a couple memoranda on this in the last few years. Those are not in the council member handbook, but I'll put those in for next year. Under it says that, and under parliamentary procedure rules, it has to occur at the same or succeeding meeting. Well, recently an issue came up of we had a decision was made at a regular council meeting. There was a special council meeting in between, and the question came up was, what does a succeeding meeting mean? What does the word succeeding meeting mean? And does that mean? The opinion that came out was succeeding meeting is defined as the next regular meeting. So our council rule grants an additional right that you probably do not see in the general parliamentary procedure. You'd be able to reconsider that special that occurred in between, and also the succeeding regular meeting that occurred. Now that opinion is on our website. We're trying to get all our opinions on our website as well too, but we'll make sure we get that one in our council member handbook for next year. We also rendered.
What if you want to reconsider an item from the special meeting?
Then you would it would be the next succeeding meeting, which would be the regular meeting.
Okay.
Well, unless there was another special meeting that occurred between then you'd have an additional right. We did another opinion on reconsideration. This is one that dealt specifically with mayoral veto. How does reconsideration apply when there's a veto that occurs? And as you know, if you go through Robert's Rules of Order, there are no vetoes in Robert's Rules of Order. So that was a lengthy. So the question there was, can reconsideration occur prior to the override vote on the mayor's veto? Our opinion came out and said, no, that would appear dilatory. And the second question was, can reconsideration occur on a failed override vote? And the opinion that came out was, no, you cannot. Otherwise, the veto power would be meaningless. We'll probably throw that one in our council member handbook as well. We also followed our Robert's Rules of Order of the 1915 version. Right now, there's already been 10 editions. The current edition for Robert's Rules is the 10th edition. We follow the 1915 version, which I think is the original version. One thing that's in that, as you know, on reconsideration, only a person who's on the prevailing side can reconsider. In the 10th edition, it says if you were not present, you can also reconsider. Our version follows says technically it's silent on that, and that is not an option. So there are these little quirks that happen. That issue were ever to come up, it's probably something that will have to be decided by our presiding officer, subject to appeal by the governing body. The last thing to bring up on reconsideration is, if you know you're going to reconsider something, what you need to do is provide the clerk with notice so we can have the proper 24-hour notice, so that if the reconsideration occurs, it can be properly debated and everybody in the public knows it's going to happen. However, because the reconsideration rule says that you can do it at the same meeting or at a succeeding meeting, and you might not know about the changed circumstances until you're at that next meeting. You may not know about the error until that next meeting. You can still make a motion to reconsider even though it has not been noticed. It still can be seconded. And what will happen at that point then is we'd have to basically stop the film, and then we'd have to notice it for the next meeting. So you preserve the reconsideration. It's timely. Make sure it's done by the right person. But some motions for reconsideration are debatable. It depends on what's being reconsidered. Some are not. But you cannot do that debate, and we'd have to renotice that particular item onto the next meeting so that we could have the proper 24-hour notice, and so the public can find out what's going to be debated and be present there, hear, and observe everything that's going to happen. So that's everything I wanted to touch, and I guess I'll open it up for any questions.
Any questions from Lorraine?
Thank you, Attorney. I kind of touched on this with you another time. The thing that I struggle with is
Somewhat, is that on?
I was saying that I had touched on this with the attorney one time. The thing that I struggle with as a council member is I'm still an individual citizen. I still have First Amendment rights. When it comes to my free speech, to whether it be computer, whether it be talking to the media or whatever, because there's always going to be a number of people listening, which could include other council members or whatever. So I don't know where we really draw the line on our protection on that.
So you're inquiring more about like emails and that type of issue, and how to